Hello, my name is Joseph Crane, and this is the Earth Collective. I set off to do this to remember mankind's history, to get it recorded onto the Orbiter 1 satellite so we won't be forgotten. It's come to my attention that there are possibly those around me listening into my broadcasts. I'm not entirely sure what their intention is or if they're listening right now. I will admit that before I was able to broadcast to the Orbiter 1, I had been searching for that woman that contacted me. No matter how many times I hailed out, I never got a response back. I'm not entirely sure what her goals are, what her intentions, or why she thinks that the history that I know about the worst thing that's ever happened to our society is wrong. But I guess if she doesn't have the guts to step forward and talk to me about it, to give me her proof, then she's not worth my time. I'm gonna go ahead and move on. I want to cover every single part of our society. I've given whoever's going to end up listening to this broadcast a bit of a background of our society and how we run. And now I want to get a bit more personal about the different facets of us. I'm going to start at the bottom of the rung. I'm going to talk about a fringe society within our collective that we call the castes. I'm sure most people around here wouldn't want to talk about them, and they don't. But the fact is they exist. I don't want them to be forgotten in the future when everybody else is being remembered through this broadcast. The castes, they are essentially anyone in our society that loses their vehicle and can't find a replacement spot on another one. Because our existence is so difficult, because we are always on the move, because we're always struggling to keep our vehicles running and going so that we all don't die. When someone else, an entire vehicle breaks down and they have no way of transporting themselves and their goods with them, it's not very often that others will have an open space for them. Sometimes they do, and then those people, those are the lucky ones, they are saved. But as for everybody else, no matter how many family or friends that they have, the chances are there's not going to be an open slot for them. So when their vehicle breaks down, and if our repair crews can't fix it in time, or can't fix it at all in general, and they don't have the credits needed to purchase another vehicle from some of the dealers, then they're out of luck. Then they get cast aside. They essentially get pushed off to the side of the caravan with as many goods as they can carry. And some people try to stick with their vehicles and try to stay and try futilely to repair them, but once it's generally decided that the vehicle is no more, they usually leave it. It's then salvaged by all the passing. They do their best to survive in the segment that they are originally from. They live on the sides of the caravan and pick up scraps and try to keep up. And if they get cast in the middle of a rough land, it's actually good for them. Because in a rough land, vehicles travel slowly for the most part, unless we're in the cold areas. The vehicles travel slowly, but those on foot can typically keep up with the caravan. If people get casts during a straightway, well, chances are we don't ever see them again. When a casts lose their vehicle, an interesting thing happens. Eventually, it gets scavenged. It gets disassembled into its most basic of pieces and carried off by everybody else in the collective. The further you up in the segments when you become cast, the longer it takes for your vehicle to get scavenged, because those up in the higher segments don't really like the idea of scavenging off of other people. They have more, they have no need to do that. People in the later segments, however, have no qualms about it. It's how they survive, it's how they live. Yes, maybe the people that own that vehicle are going to die now. But unless they do this, unless they scavenge, unless they get a replacement part for their vehicle or something that they can trade for credits, them and their family are going to die. So they do it, they scavenge it, they pick it apart. The later segments, no one really acknowledges that. They see it happening, they let it happen. Because we all know that someone's pulling apart someone else's dead vehicle, that they need it. So we let them. The interesting thing about the cast to me is the fact that they really only exist in the latter half of the collective. Travel between segments isn't very common, but you will notice that when someone gets cast from a segment higher than you are, you don't see them for quite a while. When you can't trade at those credit levels anymore, you have to move down to the next segment. Perhaps the food's cheaper, the water's cheaper, maybe it's easier to find temporary transportation. It allows them to hold on for a little bit longer. Funny part is, you never see casts from the higher segments. You never do. Isn't that interesting? So you have to wonder, why is that? I've always wondered that, and I'd like to figure that out now. You only see casts from about segment 8 and on. Nobody farther forward than that. And I don't really know why. I'm just a simple mechanic. I never go there. I never get that far. I don't know why the more privileged among us never end up as casts, where their people never have to walk alongside their friends and families and get left behind, why their people never have to barter their food credits for temporary transportation that's not going to save you anyways. Excuse me. The casts aren't really spoken to. They are generally ignored by everybody. And as much as I hate to admit it, I'm not innocent of that either. It's not easy to see people that you know, that you've cared about, that you've shared meals with, to see them walking alongside the caravan on the edge. When your friends are cast, when someone you know gets cast, chances are you don't have any space for them. For the most part, people like to pretend they're not there. And in a sick way, I understand. Usually, when they become casts, they have to barter away everything that they can carry on them. Radios is often one of the first things to go, because that will fetch the highest price for credits. Most people that care about them don't know, and it's difficult to navigate through a stream of vehicles on foot, especially if you're on a straightway. However, that's not always the case. There's an open space. Maybe someone died of a disease, or of an accident, or of old age. Right. Of old age. Occasionally there is an opening. When someone gets casts, they can apply for that opening. They have to show that their skills can match the profession of the person that used to live there. They can pull their weight. And that's a good thing, because sometimes you can see someone cast, and then they have to leave your segment. They have to go to the next one because they can't afford to live there anymore. And you can assume that they died, that they didn't make it like the rest of the cast. But once in a while, I'll go back, I'll go on a repair call, and we'll run favors for the segment behind us. And a couple of times in my lifetime, I've seen some casts in a new position, a new profession. And well, I guess they weren't casts anymore. They had names again. And that was good to see. It shows me that there is hope here. I don't have the names of the casts. They come and go. When a vehicle is destroyed, if it's in my segment, I know about it, yes. It breaks my heart to see what happens to them, but after we decide that their vehicle is unrepairable, me and my repair crew, along with all the other repair crews, we have to leave, and we have to go on to the next segment, or else we would get reprimanded. Now, as the cast moves farther back in the collective, they get closer and closer to the last segment, segment 18. And that's bad, because once you get to the last segment and you can't survive there anymore, there's nowhere else left for you to go. Segment 18 doesn't have any temporary transportation. Segment 18 doesn't have any kindness, any hope, any charity. Segment 18 is the last of the last, the back, the tail, the dirty, the dogs that pull the bones out of the ground to build what they need to survive. No one really helps them. They don't really help anyone else. So when a cast get back to segment 18, they do their best to survive, but usually when they head that direction, they're gone. You can consider them dead. You never see them again. They usually just get to the tail of the caravan, and they just hold on for just a little bit longer, and eventually they get so weak, just have to let go, and they fade away. One thing that really captures my attention about the cast is an old rumor, a myth, and they call it the long line of cars. And what that is when someone becomes casts, as a rumor goes, they go insane from what's happening. They go insane from seeing all their friends and family ignore them and drive past them, and having to slowly head to the back of the caravan to die. Most people around here will say that the long line of cars is just a silly figment of the cast's imagination. It's a sign of them going insane. It's not real. It's a false apparition on the horizon. I don't really know exactly what the long line of cars is, because I haven't talked to a cast about it, at least not yet. But I do know that it's not the collective, it's not the caravan we're in right now. The crazy part is, nobody but the casts can see it. So I've heard stories that a cast will start screaming, there it is, there's the long line of cars. I see it. It's right there, it's so close. And they'll turn around to someone on the vehicle alongside them and say, don't you see it? What is that? Who is that? And the person in the vehicle will look on the horizon, look around, and see nothing. Everybody says it's just hallucination, but I've noticed something that no one else has mentioned or wanted to mention. I've noticed the fact that this hallucination, apparently, is the same for every single cast, for every single segment. This apparition will appear to the casts, no matter what segment they become casts in. Many of them see it before they even go farther back in the caravan. So that rules out mass hysteria, right? They're not sharing stories if they're in completely different sections. So that makes me wonder, what is this long line of cars? Where does it come from? Who is it? I'm gonna find some casts and I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to find this long line of cars. Looks like my time is up. Again, this is the Earth Collective. This is Joseph Crane, signing off.